Sir, I know your son. How a Southside teacher gave hope back to a magnate Chicago. June 2025. Southside wakes up to the honking of buses, the crack of broken bottles in alleyways, and distant sirens. Jacob Williams, 32 years old, navigates the sidewalk where cracks seem to tell stories of the neighborhood. Tall, lean, with short dreadlocks, wearing faded jeans and glasses, he carries a bag filled with books. Jacob is a history teacher at Horizon School, and for his students, he's like an older brother who believes in them, even when the whole world spits on them. His classroom is a place where boys and girls who have already been written off learn to dream. But behind his smile is exhaustion. Debts from his education weigh heavily. His salary is laughable, and the school bosses are always saying, "Don't stick your neck out, Williams." He enters the classroom, where it's already noisy. Trevor, a boy with bold eyes and a phone in his hand, grins. "What, Mr. Williams? King again?" He drawls, leaning back in his chair. "Nope, Trevor." Jacob drops his bag on the desk, winking. Today, we're talking about those who took action when everyone said, "Don't talk nonsense." Maybe you're one. The kids laugh but listen when he turns on the projector. On the screen are old protest photos, but Jacob isn't focusing on dates. He talks about people, about the woman who single-handedly started a revolt, about the student who went against everyone. His lessons are like stories around a campfire, and the boys who usually stare at their phones suddenly fall silent. Jacob knows what it's like to be invisible. His father, a mechanic, lost his job because he was the wrong color. Be better than they expect, he used to say. And Jacob has carried these words like a flag ever since. At the same time, on the other side of Chicago, in a penthouse with floor-tickling windows, Richard Hayes looks out over Lake Michigan. He is 55 years old and the king of real estate. His skyscrapers and malls are like chess pieces in his game of life. But behind the expensive suit and gray temples at his temples is emptiness. 20 years ago, his marriage to Ellen fell apart, and his son Michael, then just a boy with a notebook of poems, left home after an argument. "You're my disappointment," Richard spat out back then. And those words now eat away at him inside. He pours himself some whiskey. Looking at the city below him, his secretary, Miss Lawson, shoves papers about some school fund toward him, but he signs without looking. For him, it's just numbers. Another deal. But at night, when everything quiets down, he remembers how Michael used to read his poems aloud, while he merely snorted. Where is he now? Is he alive? Chicago of 2025 is two worlds. In the center, glass and steel. On the south side, graffiti and boarded-up windows. People take to the streets, shouting against the demolition of their homes for new skyscrapers. But who listens? Jacob is kept afloat by his sister Lisa, 38 years old, a social worker with a smile that warms the heart and a character. Like a tank. In their cramped apartment where her stew smells inviting, she always knows what to say. "You don't just teach, Jake," she says, stirring soup. "You give these children wings. Don't let anyone break them." But at school, there's Margaret Crow, the vice principal, whose eyes are like ice. She watches Jacob like a hawk. When he proposes a new project for children from shelters, she cuts him off. "Williams, stop wasting our time. Your ideas are headaches." Her words sting, but Jacob only clenches his jaw. In the school basement, among dusty boxes, works Mr. Thomas, a janitor in his 70s. His hands are wrinkled, his voice quiet, but he remembers every kid who has passed through this school. "Horizon is the heart of the neighborhood," he says, looking at Jacob. But hearts break if they aren't cherished. Late at night, Jacob digs through archives for his project. He pulls an old box and a photo falls out. Graduation year 2005. On it, a boy with eyes like Richard Hayes. On the back, writing, "Michael Hayes." Jacob freezes. He recognizes this guy, now homeless, with a tired face, who sometimes hangs around the school. Jacob shared sandwiches with him, listened to his stories. Could this really be Hayes' son? This photo is like a bomb ready to explode to worlds. The next morning, Jacob sits in the teacher's lounge, staring at his laptop. His fingers tremble as he types a letter. "Mr. Hayes, I know your son." He checks the text 100 times, his heart pounding like a drum. It's risky to get involved with someone who could crush him with a single phone call. But he thinks of Michael, Of his eyes where something alive still smolders. Jacob clicks send. Richard, in his office overlooking the city, opens the email. Another blackmailer, he thinks. But something in these words catches him. No threats, only truth. He calls his secretary, Miss Lawson. Find this Williams. I want to see him in the school library, among old books and the smell of dust. Jacob waits. He fidgets with his sleeve, nerves at breaking point. The door opens, and in walks Richard, tall, in a suit that radiates money, with a gaze that cuts like a knife. What do you want? Money. His voice is like a gunshot. No, Mr. Hayes. Jacob stands up, trying not to shake. I've seen Michael. He's alive, but he's in bad shape. Richard freezes, his fingers digging into the chair. You're lying, my son. He disappeared. Long ago. Jacob lays the photo on the table. Richard looks, and his face crumbles anger, pain, tears in his eyes. Where did you get this? He whispers, touching the picture as if afraid it will disappear. Jacob tells him how Michael shares food with other homeless people, how he fights addiction, how he still holds on to something human. He doesn't want to be found, says Jacob, quietly, but you should know. Richard turns away, his shoulders shaking. He wants to run, but his legs won't move. Why would you do this? He rasps. What do you care about us? I know what it's like to be invisible, answers Jacob, and in his voice is the echo of his father's pain. The library door slams, and Margaret Crow bursts in. Her eyes blaze. Williams, you've crossed all boundaries. She hisses. Blackmail. I'll destroy you. I'm not blackmailing, snaps Jacob, looking her straight in the eye. I'm trying to do something good. Richard remains silent, but watches. Jacob, as if seeing him for the first time. At home, Lisa listens to her brother and hugs him. You've always been stubborn, Jake. She laughs. Go all the way. I'm with you. The next day, Jacob runs into Mr. Thomas in the corridor. The old man hands him a battered notebook. This is Michael's, he says. He wrote poetry. Good kid, until life broke him. Jacob flips through the notebook, reading lines about pain and dreams. It's like a bridge between him, Michael, and Richard. He knows he must act. Jacob and Richard begin searching for Michael, but everything goes sideways. Richard wants to hire detectives, as if money solves everything. That's faster, he mutters in his office, which smells of leather and coffee. Jacob shakes his head, eyes burning. Money won't bring your son back. He needs you to see him as a person, not a problem. Richard grimaces, but agrees. They go to Southside, where the streets are like scars on the city. Richard in his suit looks like an alien among graffiti and peeling walls. Jacob, however, feels right at home, greeting neighbors, handing out blankets at the shelter. How do you stand this? Richard mumbles, watching Jacob chat with a homeless old man. This ... mess. It's not a mess, Jacob replies. These are people you don't notice. At the shelter, they're told Michael was there but left a few days ago. Richard clenches his fists, his face darkening. He doesn't want to see me, he says, and there's pain in his voice. Jacob claps him on the shoulder. Maybe he's just scared you'll push him away again. Meanwhile, Margaret Crow stirs up trouble at school. She spreads rumors that Jacob is misusing school funds for his personal causes and incites parents to file complaints. At a meeting, she waves the letters. Williams undermines our reputation. Her voice cuts like glass. He must be stopped. Jacob sits in the corner, feeling colleagues' gazes press down on him. But Ms. Rodriguez, the chemistry teacher, stands up. Jacob is the best among us, she says. Want to fire him? Explain that to the children. The room buzzes, but Margaret only narrows her eyes. At home, Lisa helps Jacob gather a folder of evidence. Letters from students, project photos. You knew it would be tough, she says, pouring tea. But you're not alone. In the basement, Mr. Thomas sits on a crate, looking at Jacob. Michael was like you, he says. He wanted to change the world, but no one helped him. Don't let this happen again. Jacob reads Michael's notebook, and one poem strikes deep. I am a shadow on asphalt. I am ash in the fire, but someone will see the light within me. He grips the notebook. This is his fight. The bomb drops when Jacob learns that Richard's company, Hayes Development, plans to demolish part of Southside for luxury homes. A protest flyer hangs on the school board. Students whisper nervously, their eyes full of fear. Their homes are threatened. Mr. Williams, is this true? Asks Trevor. Will they take our house? Jacob doesn't know what to say. In the evening, He meets Richard at a diner on the outskirts. "Did you know your project would leave my kids homeless?" His voice trembles. "Your son sleeps on the streets while you build palaces." Richard pales, his fingers crumpling a napkin. "I didn't know," he whispers. "I thought it was just business." Jacob looks at him, anger giving way to weariness. "Business won't save your son, and it won't save this neighborhood." Richard remains silent, watching protesters outside the window. Their placards shout, "South Side, our home." For the first time, he feels his world is a house of cards. A week later, they find Michael at the shelter. He sits in a corner, face emaciated, but eyes just as in the photo. Jacob approaches first. "Michael, it's me, Jacob. Remember near the school?" Michael nods, but looks at Richard. "Why are you here?" he croaks. "You threw me out." Richard steps forward, but stops. "I was wrong, son." His voice breaks. "Give me a chance." Michael turns away, his shoulders trembling. "Too late," he says, and walks into the night. Jacob looks at Richard, whose face is a mask of pain. "He's not ready," Jacob says, "but he's alive." That's something Jacob remembers. How his father cried when he was fired, how his mother worked 2 jobs. These memories drive him forward. Richard, in his empty penthouse, recalls laughing at Michael's poems. "Poetry isn't for men," he used to say. Now he hates himself for it. But light begins to seep in. Jacob brings students to the shelter to distribute books and food. Richard, tie loosened, helps serve soup. "I never thought I could do this," he says. Looking at the line, Jacob smirks. "You just forgot what it's like to be human." At the protest, Jacob sees Lisa with a sign. She hugs him. "You're doing it, Jake," she says. "You're making them all listen." But Margaret enlists a political friend, and Jacob receives paperwork for a hearing. "End of the road for you, Williams," she hisses. He looks at her, fear battling the fire inside. He won't give up. Jacob decides to risk everything. He organizes a school assembly where children will share their stories. He wants Michael to understand he's not alone, and for Richard to discover what's worth fighting for. Convincing Michael is quite a challenge. Jacob finds him on the shelter stairs. "I don't want to see him," Michael grumbles, staring at the pavement. "He ruined everything." "I know." Jacob sits beside him. "But sometimes forgiveness is for yourself. Just come." Michael remains silent but nods. The evening of the assembly. The auditorium is packed. Students, parents, teachers, even a couple of journalists. Jacob stands on stage, his heart pounding like a hammer. "This school isn't just walls," he says, "it's our lives. And tonight we show them." Trevor goes first, his voice trembling. "My father's in prison, my mom works nights. But Mr. Williams said, I can be whoever I want." Children speak about deportation, shelters, dreams. The audience alternates between tears and applause. Richard sits in the front row, his face stone-like, but eyes wet. Michael hides at the back in an old sweater, clutching the notebook. Jacob nods to Richard. The latter stands, his footsteps echoing. "I built an empire," he says, his voice breaking. "But I lost my son. I was blind. Jacob showed me what it means to be human. Michael, ... forgive me. I want to make things right." Silence. Michael stands, eyes teary. He walks forward slowly. Richard descends from the stage, and they embrace. The hall erupts. People cry, clap. Lisa hands the principal the folder. "Crow framed Jacob," she whispers. "She's in cahoots with the developers." The principal nods. Margaret, near the exit, pales and leaves. Mr. Thomas hands Michael the notebook. "Keep writing, son," he says. "Your light still burns." This is victory over the system, over pain. The notebook is a symbol that everything can be restored. After the assembly, everything changes. Richard halts the demolition and creates the Horizon Fund. Money flows to schools, scholarships, shelters. Michael undergoes treatment. Richard visits him. "I read your poems," he says. Sitting in Michael's room, they single quotes read ... Michael smiles. "Maybe I'll write more." Jacob is named Teacher of the Year. Trevor enrolls in programming. "I'll be like you," he grins. Lisa prepares dinner. Raising a glass, "I told you, you'd change the world." She laughs. Margaret disappears, her name fading like ashes. Mr. Thomas, now a guest at events, tells his stories. "The school survived everything," he says. "And so did you." Richard and Jacob become friends. "I thought the world was deals," Richard says over coffee. "But you showed me its people." Jacob smirks. and you proved that even kings can change. Southside comes alive. Houses, parks, libraries. Protests fade, but their spirit remains in every new brick. June 2026. Jacob stands in his classroom, now equipped with computers and colorful posters. On the wall hangs a photo of Michael and Richard embracing. Michael's notebook lies on the desk, a reminder that light exists everywhere. Lisa enters with coffee. "I'm proud of you, little brother," she says, hugging him. Mr. Thomas left his archives to the school. They're now part of the lessons. Richard and Michael Kothor, a book of poems titled Light Within Me. Michael reads them at the library opening, his voice trembling but strong. Richard watches, pride in his eyes. Southside flourishes. Parks where children run, centers where adults study. Jacob walks down the street, greeting neighbors. Trevor carries a laptop, waving to him. The world is changing, Jacob whispers, watching the sunset. And in this city, among high-rises and streets, a light burns, lit by a teacher who believed that everyone deserves to be seen.